and they need to know. They need maybe a review of best practices, or maybe they need to learn them if they did not. The principal or administrative support's huge, both at the district and principal level. They demonstrate support by their teachers in a lot of ways, and of course scheduling is huge if you're talking about collaboration. They have to have time to collaborate. And actually in our training we try to give them an hour or two every time, unless we're on a field trip, to do collaboration with their partners. Money, if you're going to have two periods for, one for the conference and one for the team planning, it costs money. We lost double blocking math how many years ago, which was huge. I guess it was 08 with the and then the lack of equipment and materials. I'm old and I don't have any tolerance anymore for a district not having math and science materials in the classroom when they can spend $60 million on an athletic complex. I went into a major 5A high school, Rich, this last year. I was supervising a chemistry student teacher. They had 1 electronic balance. 1. They needed 6 minimum. And probably and that's only for 24 students. If they had more than 24, they need 1 for every 4 students. I walk outside, there's an 18-wheeler band truck with a expensive wraparound, which I know was probably at least $3,000. I'm thinking, how many electronic balances could that have purchased? I don't care if the parents did buy it. It's just, where is our priority in our nation? We are not going to improve in STEM areas, which the business community wants us to do and the parents want us to do, but they don't see that alternate side that you can't have it all. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's something interesting. The first year we did not see any gains in science. Because they didn't know the math before using it in the science. So the graphs you saw earlier were in the second year. So now we're paying more attention to this in the first year and looking at a lot of things. For example, I talk to a lot of teachers. I mean, that's important for me to know. I can't be isolated at a university. And at Dahlstrom, which Roger Vigno, principal, should be here tomorrow. His superintendent called a meeting today, so he had to go. And so 2 of his teachers are former students of mine. And I was trying to remember what I was talking to them and with some of your teachers in Lockhart, and we were talking about the STAR scores. I said, well, where are your students having problems? Well, we know our science is one of them, okay? But here's what we found. I was in Bluebonnet with Ashley Davidson. I had a student teacher, and I love putting student teachers with you guys, because not you, because you're so far. Nobody wants to go to Divine. Sorry. I love you, but apparently you don't have people that are nearby. Yeah, it's a long way. But they were telling me that they were having trouble with, STAR. So I'm in the 5th grade, and I go into this lesson with this excellent student teacher who is actually going to be teaching math at the high school.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Deanna hired her. And
Ashley Davidson?
No, not Ashley. Ashley.
Is it Bluebonnet?
Yeah, she was a student teacher at Bluebonnet. So Marta's now Bruni, or Bruni. I'm not quite sure how she pronounces it. Anyway, so I walk in there, and the student teacher's doing a really great job. She's dressed up as Brew. She's got the, it's on complete circuits. So she's got on the scarf and everything, and she does all of this linkages with Despicable Me, and all. It's very, very clever. But she's teaching series and parallel circuits. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't have the TEKS completely memorized, but I said, I don't remember series or parallel. So I'm sitting back there with this cooperating teacher, Ashley Davidson. I said, where is that in the TEKS? So we're looking, not in there. She said, well, it's in the STAR. I said, it can't be in the STAR if it's not in the TEKS. So we're looking at STAR items. So in one of the items, and it was not in STAR, but the inference was there, because in one of the items they use the term series, so districts have immediately put that in their academic vocabulary. Wrong. Kids do not need to know the term series. We don't teach series and parallel circuits till high school, at least in IPC, and then in physics. All the kids need to know from the TEKS is a complete circuit. That's important. That's how you keep from getting electrocuted. So that is important. They do not need to know the term series.
That's real.
So the other thing that we saw in STAR is they had a parallel diagram for parallel circuitry. So the teachers and the districts and these so-called experts and these companies have put in series and parallel circuits as either vocabulary or lessons that focus on that. All the student has to do on the STAR item is to be able to take their pencil and be able to draw it from the source, the battery or whatever, all the way around to the light bulb. Is it going to light? That's all the question asks. So it's completely misinterpreted from the TEKS. So the TEKS is correct, okay? But TEA, with their STAR item of putting the vocabulary in there, I think is a mistake. Because they think, okay, series, and parallel, we have to teach both of those. You can have students experience those kinds, but you don't have to name them. They just need to know, will the light bulb light? Can they take a pencil on the STAR test and draw it around there? That's all they need to know. Then the 8th grade teachers at Dahlstrom, I had a student teacher there, and again, that's really good for me to have student teachers out and having extended conversations. I don't go in and just do an observation and have a 15-minute debriefing. It's at least an hour debriefing. Well, we spent 2 hours after school talking with Candace, who's going to be in the mix, and another science teacher and former math and science teacher with whom I had a student teacher with, Cody Mize, who actually has a video on our mix site about starting class within 2 minutes. It's phenomenal. Of course, the guy's ADHD, so that gives you some insight into it. Anyway, I said, well, where are your students having trouble on 8th grade STAR? And they said with topographic maps. And I said, really? So what do the TEKS say? Well, they say they need to know where soil is deposited or eroded from, etc. Okay. And they said, well, it's the map. I said, what map? So we start looking at STAR items, and STAR is asking them to measure the distance between one topo line to another topo line. So I emailed assessment at TEA, and I said, here's a couple of problems. You've got vocabulary in 5th grade, such as series, and there may be others, I just haven't discovered that yet, or nobody's told me about it. And in the 8th grade, you're assessing a math ability, not science. That should not be in there, that's not in the TEKS. And the science teachers, because we didn't know any better, said, oh, well, they can do that math. Well, no, they can't, because in math, the topo kind of lines that they would look at are all equal distance. Well, they're not equal distance in science. So I said, you're assessing something that's not in the TEKS. So we've had some conversations back and forth, and I've testified at the state board about it, and I think it'll change. I mean, they said, well, we don't agree with you, essentially, and I said, okay, I'm not giving up. This is not right. You're assessing math, you're not assessing science, and that's one of the reasons why earth science scores are low. So I think you're going to see some changes with that. So you want to see why science is low in some cases? There's some reasons for you. The math and the science were not horizontally aligned, and the science students had used the math skill before it was taught in math. And that went back to when we were working with Nimitz STEM Academy, and the 6th grade scope and sequence was a march through the TEKS. Well, that's not how the TEKS were written in science. Math is pretty sequential. I would say you probably need to march through the math TEKS, but you don't need to march through the science TEKS. In many cases, it doesn't matter when you teach what. There's arguments for a lot of different versions of it. But in the science TEKS, we have calculate density. That's in the first step. So we thought, no problem with that. I was on the writing team. We did not think there was a problem with that. I even went to the math coordinator at TEA and said, can students do this? She said, yes. Okay, well, we'll just put that in there. We did not pay attention to the verbs, and I don't care what your high price consultants say, we did not pay attention to the verbs. We didn't. That's the honest truth. Yeah. And how much money does she get? At any rate, so the science teacher is teaching the students, requiring students to not only calculate density, but to manipulate the formula. They don't manipulate formulas in math at that grade level, okay? And they had not even learned how to calculate it, even if you don't manipulate it in math, until November. So they're supposed to be calculating density in September in science, but they are not learning that math until November. Those children stayed confused the whole year until actually the math teacher went back, used the same science activities to reteach it, and it wasn't until then, in February or March, that they got an understanding of that. Yeah, April, I guess it was. And commercial products are not aligned. I don't know what y'all are using, but I know Lockhart's using the TEACS resources from Region 13. And I have raised the red flag numerous times, even with Ms. Brent about it, that they are not aligned. They don't talk to each other. I even talked to Region 13 person at TEPSA, when we were at TEPSA, about this. So y'all are paying a lot of money for misaligned products. And they need to know it, they need to correct it, but certainly we, you know, at our local level are going to have to correct
Hopefully
it.
our teachers that we have, when they're planning, you know, will bring that up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When they're creating because they're going to be planning like 9 weeks at a time.
Yes.
So we need to be very conscious of that.
So can you explain more what you're saying by misaligned? I want to know what to look for.
That means that the math is used in science before the children learn the math in math.
Okay. So
And we're going to
between
give you
math
some
and
more,
science,
we're going to give you
we
some
need
more
to make
examples
sure.
of that.
Okay.
Yes.
So are you saying it'd be best to look at the math, scope and sequence, and then rearrange the science to meet?
Exactly. So the science has to identify where do they use math, and will the children have already learned it at a previous grade level or in their grade level math class. And
And
fifth
you're
grade,
speaking just to fifth grade, because then we have to be conscious to see that it's not happening in fourth and in third.
I don't look at K4, but I think you certainly should look at that. I know your fifth grade teachers have identified that as a problem, and I know sixth and eighth grade teachers have identified that as a problem.
I'm sure it's a problem because TEACS resource follows the same scope and sequence for all the grades. So you're always teaching the same concepts at the same time.
It's marched through the TEACS in science. And that's what I said, y'all, you know, you're paying a lot of money for that product,
Yeah.
and it should be horizontally aligned. And that's why, you know, early on, we've been raising the red flag to everybody we know, including, I've testified about this at TEA, at the State Board of Education. So, you know, you should be aware of it and look at it, but Region 13 should be making that correction.
If we're paying for it.
Yes, that's right, you are paying for it. I don't know, what are y'all using?
Not sure.
Okay. Yes, that's a question for a principal to find out, huh?
Good question.
Yeah.
Because we've changed, a lot of things have changed.
Yes.
Have
Yeah,
you
the
used TEACS
superintendent.
resource?
Yes, to do.
Have you used TEACS resource in the past?
No.
Does Region 20 have something?
I think they've developed something and we're looking into that.
Okay, well, that's an issue.
Okay.
That's an issue. So, what good does it do to have teachers and principals? Well, we know that there is enhanced learning of content. We know that the language issues are being at least thought about, and sometimes, you know, they're identifying them, etc. We see lots of enhanced collaboration, even with the university faculty that who teach this, like Russell. It made an impact on his physics classes, and that's good. And certainly enhanced collaboration between students and teachers, as well as the collaboration between your teacher teams, between the teacher-principal teams, between, I'll call us staff, between all of us. And I've tried to give you examples of things that I have learned by, you know, being able to talk to people and ask them questions and you know, raise questions, et cetera, to them. So have we enhanced student performance? Well, we had a transition from TAKS to STAR. We did see an improvement. The principals noted an improvement in STAR and TAKS scores. We had a gap in there with STAR, and so, you know, we're back looking at STAR scores to see if there's a trend with it. You know, it's only a 1 point does not tell us anything except it's just 1 point. It's like the NAEP scores. And we have the student pre-post scores that we are again doing this year, and we'll share that information with you. But there's no longitudinal student studies. That would be the way, you know, we should do it, but we don't have the capacity to do that. That's expensive to be able to do that. It's supposed to be a database that's available, but I don't have the manpower to be able to do that. I'd have to pay a lot more in a grant to be able to do something like that. It is funded by the coordinating board, the Space Grant Consortium by Texas State, and of course the participating districts have some funding in that. There are agreements. The agreement is signed that there are pre-post tests and surveys and interviews and observations of an integrated lesson and sample integrated lesson or instruction plans. That's what we want. What the feds want is they have to have some pre-post tests. They have reflections that they do at the beginning and end of the summer in each of the 6 academic year sessions that we have. And they have, they're doing actually statewide evaluations with this data. And a video agreement that Sarah, you guys are supposed to sign, because we put everything on our Mixed YouTube channel. So people can go back and, you know, use it like they like. So smile. We had the highest rated proposal in actually the last 3 years we've had the highest rated proposal. And certainly the last one that we did. I'll have to make, I make a lot of confessions. Here's one more. When the RFA came out, we knew we were going to do the mixed model. We knew we were going to have all of the things we typically do, but it also had a mention about writing. And I thought, oh, writing, we're supposed to put writing in this. Well, okay, so I talked to ELA, retired teachers I work with, and they said, oh yeah, we can have writing to learn math and writing to learn science. So I said, okay, I guess we'll stick that in. Well, come to find out, it was a separate grant. They just wanted a writing grant, not to learn math or not to learn science, just to learn writing. We're the only one that has writing to learn math or science in it. So, I don't think y'all have been in it. I don't know if you've been in it. You've been in it, okay.
Just started.
Yeah. With the teachers love it and the principals love it when our writing people come in.
I was there when
they did
Yes.
that, when Deanne and Sarah came out, yeah. So, as I said, it was accidental, but it turned out to be a good idea.
Writing is always good
And so we
because
talked about the
kids really have a
writing and
block when it comes to writing. We do a lot of writing in every class just to get them used to it. They know they're going to have to write, and it's improved our scores.
That's what we were just
Well,
talking about.
I mean, writing is good for all of us. I have a hard time getting my students to understand that when they're writing lesson plans, it doesn't mean you write it one time. It means you write it multiple times. Everything I write, if I'm writing a paper, I'm talking 30 or 40 rewrites on it. We're talking a lot of rewrites. And we have not done a good job about that. It's hard to grade writing, to be an ELA teacher with, you know, all the reading that you have to do. It's like grading essays. It's just difficult to do. But somehow, you know, if we don't do that with peer reviews and, you know, other ways that it's not just all on the teacher, that it's just not going to happen. It is important to happen. I was reading a stats the other day that said that engineers spend half their time writing. Engineers, half their time writing.
When I was in Aldine in Houston, the teacher that had 100% and it was in the time of tax, but the math teacher that had 100% every single time for the 8 years that I was there was the teacher that incorporated writing into math.
Right.
Because she would make the kids write how they came to the to that answer.
And that's exactly what the new math teachers are asking students to do.
But that's a requirement that I have on all of our CBAs, when they're tested. They must have a writing component in it. And usually our bell-to-bell, the sponge activity is a writing activity for almost every,
I don't think teachers know how to teach that.
They
I think that's part of the problem. I think part
Well,
of
that's
it
a
also,
big part of the problem.
there's no accountability. So kids write something in a sponge activity, who sees it?
the teacher does, and they're required to grade them now. So
I don't know that I would grade, I think I would comment.
it's a daily,
Yeah,
it's a
comment.
daily grade, it's not a
Yeah.
test grade.
Right, so it's just a
Participation.
participation grade, yeah, yeah. But to have the conversations with each other, the students, among students about what they write and how they write it. I do that even with my class. I have them write a science education philosophy, and they have to read each other's and then have some discussion with each other's about theirs, and then they have to rewrite it, and they rewrite it. Every test has that item on there. And I call it their elevator speech. You know, what is it that they think about science education in 3 or 4
You have to
sentences?
realize in 6th grade and 7th grade, and in some cases 8th grade, they don't know how to write. They don't know how to spell. They don't know how to do sentence structure.
College students do not know how to write or
It's
spell.
unbelievable.
I know, you're telling me.
Unbelievable.
I'm
And
talking
no wonder-
seniors here.
Yeah, so no wonder they hate writing, because they don't know how. They don't have the equipment to be able to do writing.
Right.
And it's a mystery to them, and it's a frustration to them. And so they nix, I don't write, I don't want to write. And so in 6th grade, what we do is say, okay, you're going to write. We're not going to grade punctuation, we're not going to grade spelling, but we are going to grade sentence structure. It needs to be something that makes sense when you write a sentence.
There's also a difference in writing on a computer, and then there is writing by hand.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's.
Did you send us that article, right? You said
I may have, it's.
about carrying over hand versus.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, I probably
Because
did.
there's spell
I send
check,
out
there's
things like that.
even grammar
It's not
correct.
that, it's just even if you're just writing as a flow and not caring about those kind of things, that there's a difference in the product between, and I see it, there's a difference in my writing between writing on a computer versus writing by hand on something.
What's the
And
difference that you see?
Well, right now, if I'm gonna write a note to someone, you know, like in a greeting card or something, I write it out on the computer and I'm editing it as I go. And then I write it out when I have my
It's
final
much easier on
product.
a computer. I don't know what we did before computers. But it is, because you can change it easily, you can restructure it. The spelling is not an issue.
Right.
I think that article that you sent talked about how kids retain it, or we retain it.
Yeah, that's a
more.
different issue.
It's a transfer from here to here.
It primarily had to do
versus-
with taking notes.
Yeah.
Taking notes by hand versus taking notes on your
retention.
computer.
Yeah.
That students learn,
But you know
retain
that
it better.
there's a science to taking notes as well, which isn't taught in school until much later, where you cannot write out everything. You have to kind of
Get that
develop your own
shorthand. Right, yeah.
And they're not taught that.
Okay, well, you all know my email. This is our, I think this is supposed to be, mix it up. There's something else I think goes on there. Let me check that URL. Anyway, all the videos are on it, as we've said before. The handouts, so you're gonna get copies of these handouts, but they're also on the website. And in Dropbox, we have a teacher's resource, so, you know, things that we use go in a Dropbox that they also have access to. So again, we share everything, good, bad.
It is, it's mixitupwebsite.wordpress.com.
Mix it up website.
Yeah.
At WordPress.
.wordpress.com.
Okay, so, let's take a break. It is, what time is it?
9:41.
9:41.